I've been offered the job of Director of Football of the newly founded Juventus club family, a system that controls Juventus in Italy, Castellón in Spain and Reading in England. It's a family for sure, but it's not a very good one. Juventus are in 5th place, Reading might be able to just scrape into the playoffs in the 3rd division, and Castellón are probably only just going to be safe from relegation in the Spanish 2nd division. Forget the others though, because for the next 6 games, we need to focus on the old lady of Turin. More specifically, we need to focus on finding a manager, because Thiago Motta has just been fired, and Igor Tudor has been strongly linked with the club, but I don't think he fits with my grand plan. We need someone who's won trophies, someone who knows Italian football, and someone with really big charisma. It's not Jose Mourinho, we need Domenico Tedesco. To be honest, he was our 3rd choice. Ancelotti didn't even reply to our email, Jose's reply wasn't the nicest, but Tedesco's attacking football is more than worth trying. I think we have the squad for a strong back 4, the double pivot that he likes to use, a number 10 and 3 good players up front. It's an almost perfect match to the squad that we find ourselves with. Domenico couldn't have had an easier start. His first match was against 16th place Parma away from home and then 20th place Monza at home, but that didn't stop him from making some demands. He knew exactly who he wanted to sign in the summer, and we had to move quickly to get him right now. Kevin De Bruyne has only just posted a heartfelt message about leaving City, but if we can match his wage he was on there, he says he'll be our new Del Piero. Before we offer him the wage, we consult with 2 former Juventus players who know Kevin De Bruyne well. Danilo really likes the idea, and Chiellini still thinks he's got a few more years in the tank. So we agree to his terms, but it isn't a done deal just yet. We're going to be competing with clubs from America and Saudi Arabia, who can both probably offer more than we can. Before we decide on any further improvements, it's important to see the existing squad. There are a lot of loanees about to leave the club, so there's some big decisions to be made. Our game against Bologna is a really important one for us to go to watch. It was going to be the first time we could figure out if we had made the right choice hiring Domenico Tedesco. It was the first match we watched, and it was the first time we saw how the squad would adapt to his tactics. Tedesco ball is actually quite easy to understand. It's 4-2-3-1, where he tries to win the ball as high up the pitch as possible. But it was actually quite obvious within the first 40 minutes where we needed to strengthen. We didn't have enough pace on the counter on the wings to actually get the ball into the box. It looked more like we were jogging forwards than sprinting forwards with purpose. When we got the ball into the box, crosses would come in, but we didn't have any kind of height other than Vlahovic. This meant that it was kind of obvious this game was going to end in a draw, even as early on as the 70th minute. Vlahovic had the only real chance in the 78th minute, and we did keep trying to counter-attack and win the ball as high up as possible, but it just seemed like nothing would really work. The passes were sluggish, there wasn't enough urgency on the counter-attack, and that is unforgivable when it comes to a Domenico Tedesco side. With our first work at Juventus complete, we turn our attention over to Reading, who are only 2 games away from reaching the playoffs in League One. Before the Agnelli family rescued Reading, they were being talked about in every newspaper because of their financial problems, but now the newspapers are starting to say that the Royals are back. We will not be replacing Noel Hunt as manager this season because his decision to build a squad of young players is turning out to be the right one. In the squad program, we see that only 2 of his previous starting 11 are over the age of 22, one of them being a 29-year-old Lewis Wing who takes every set piece, and 25-year-old Harvey Nibbs, who are both worth their starting spots. The first time we leave Turin is actually to travel to Mansfield, and a win here would guarantee playoff football for Reading. It was a little bit jarring going from continental standard football in Serie A to the very agricultural style football in League One, but that's exactly what Noel Hunt is providing. There'll be no big playmakers on his shopping list this summer. There might be a new target man, maybe a really big centre-back that can help us defend if we do get promoted to the Championship, and you could already see that in his style. The ball was in the air more than it was on the pitch, but when we did get the ball to our attackers, Reading were actually fairly lethal. Mansfield, not the best team in League One to be sure, but Noel Hunt has shown me that he has probably got the right style to be successful in League One. Maybe in time we can slowly develop the style of play that Reading are going to be using. We could use maybe a little bit more pace on the wings, but we already have 2 very fast strikers through the middle. I can already see where 1 or 2 of our loanees from Juventus would fit into this Reading side, because they do need a little bit more talent and a little bit more flair. Despite it being a team that's fully focused about grinding out results, it was actually a fairly fun experience to watch a team play in Mansfield. It was even better to see that one of our sister clubs would go on to get a win in our first trip over to England. So, Reading are going to be in the playoffs then. No pressure on the club here, we'll just leave them to it, and if they make it to Wembley, we might show up, but we need to get back to Juventus and focus on the upcoming transfer window. In fact, we spend the majority of May and June meeting with club legends like Buffon, Del Piero and Chiellini to try and learn what the Juventus DNA actually is. They made some points and it was kind of clear what we should be looking for. We shouldn't be worried about signing older players, defence first football is very important, and the club needs Champions League football. Thankfully, Domenico is filling all three of these requirements. It's just a couple of days after the season ends that news leaks about Kevin De Bruyne. He's chosen his club, and it is us. He still thinks he has a few more titles in him, and the retirement leagues can wait. That is outstanding news. With his announcement and Champions League football confirmed thanks to finishing 4th in the league, we perform our first squad assessment with Tedesco, and his requests are also very clear. Kolo Muani was decent for the last couple of games out on the wing, but his loan is now over, so we need a permanent starting right winger. He sees Yildiz more of a left winger, and he gives his suggestions. I do like the sound of a Koeman return, but his wage expectations are way too expensive. Instead, we're gambling our reputation like we're at the casino, and Anthony is known for his roulette spin, so we're going to go all in for him to carry on his amazing Betis form. We badly need a striker too. Vlahovic has a lot of interest and his wage is close to 20 million euros a year. It's just unsustainable. So while we wait for someone to bid on him, we agree a pre-contract terms with Jonathan David from Lille and a cheap deal for the 7-foot-tall giant Lorenzo Luca, who joins from Parma, also in Italy. The last gap we identified was at fullback. Cambiasso and De Chiglio are very good, but it doesn't hurt to also grab Fran Garcia from Real Madrid. The squad now looks outstanding. De Bruyne is the obvious gem, but everything is looking good for next season in my opinion. However, we can't think about next season until this season finishes, and one of our clubs still hasn't finished the season. Before we can plan Reading and Castellon's next transfer windows, we have the small matter of a League One playoff final. We are definitely the underdogs going into this match, but we have full faith in Hunt. If they win this game, we can definitely send them a ton of loanees from Italy to England, just like Watford and Udinese have been doing throughout the past decade. So, as we sit in one of the most expensive seats in Wembley, we're not actually thinking about what's happening on the pitch, we're more looking around the stadium and thinking, hey, wouldn't it be good if Juventus had a ground this big? Well, to be fair, probably not, because it is so far away when the ball is on the other end of the pitch. But maybe that's good news, because the football on show hasn't really been worth watching, until there was a big gap between the Charlton defenders, and what a finish that was, right in front of the Reading end of the stand. No wonder the fans are going crazy. The entire director's box was also absolutely loving that goal. We all watched the replay, and from the edge of the box, there's a lot of venom on that shot. We got our binoculars out for the next Charlton attack, and it looked like Anderson was going to play it through to Gooden, and he did. If we were not going to win this playoff final, we did have a couple of managers in mind that we could replace Noel Hunt with. There was always Stephen Hunt, his brother, or maybe someone like Steve Cooper would drop down. But hopefully we wouldn't need either of them. What a header that was from Chem Campbell just before we went off to eat our prawn sandwiches. Charlton were actually attacking our end for the second half, so we got a good view of how they like to play. Maybe we could steal their manager if we don't manage to get promoted. They like possession a lot more than us, and it does seem like it can work at this level. That was a decent finish from the edge of the box, and it was 2-2 in one of the most dramatic matches that we've ever seen. It looks like we're going to need to get a transfer target in to replace the injured defender, because that looked like a serious injury. If he's missing for half of next season, then we're really going to need a new centre-back. But we don't even know what league we're going to be in. A goal now would be good, and that's exactly what we got. One of our younger players goes and performs on the biggest stage. Of course, with Juventus, we're used to big names playing for us, but with Reading, it was so nice to see a former academy player breaking into the squad and putting Reading ahead in the playoff final. Things could have got even better in the 85th minute, but really, we did not care. We made it down to the sideline for the end of the match, and what a place to be. Reading were going to be promoted. So it's now official. We are the director of football of 2 second division clubs and 1 that is in the Champions League. That sounds like a lot of work, so just for this year, we're actually going to offload some of the work to other people. Brian McDermott, the man who got the Royals promoted in 2012, comes in from Hibernian to oversee Hunt at Reading, while the former Juventus and Spain striker Fernando Llorente will be moving into the same role but in Spain. All of that is great news because we have a crazy season ahead of us in Italy. Around the start of August, we forward our expectations over to Domenico. We want to be competing for the title this year, making it to the semi-final of the Italian Cup and the last 8 of the Champions League. He agrees, there are no excuses now, and the half-rebuilt Juventus get ready to kick off the season. While the majority of the Juventus staff were now focused on trying to win as many games as they could, we were still doing business off the pitch. Finally, we got the big bid we wanted for Vlahovic. Him leaving means there is so much wage off the budget, and the fee more than covers the 2-year contract of De Bruyne. The club is finally in a pretty healthy position. But still, we do need those results on the pitch, and we're not doing so well in that area. With 2 games gone, 1 point on the board sounds like a pretty awful start, but the football on display was really good to watch. Domenico has less than 10 games at the club, to be honest, and it was a bit shocking to see so much hate for him over on social media, but I guess that's just the culture of success we're trying to bring back to Juventus. The best managers know when to make changes, and Domenico decided after 2 games it was already time. Antony swapped sides with Jonathan David, Luka came in up front, and De Bruyne was moved as an attacking midfielder rather than one of the 2 pivots, and the football improved almost instantly. De Bruyne now had 2 inverted wingers to feed, Luka was there for set pieces, and the defence finally looked like they now knew each other's names. Juventus were back, and by the end of October, we had cemented ourselves as challengers alongside Napoli and Inter. The months between September and December are always the most boring ones to be a director of football. You can't change how things are going on the pitch really, you can't negotiate any transfers, stadium news is usually kept for the summer, so really, we just fast forward now to December. And a few weeks before the transfer window opens, we received 2 very similar emails. The first was from Llorente and the second was from McDermott, and both teams were now in relegation battles and wanted funds to improve their squad. We agreed. There was no point sacrificing our progress in England just to buy a squad player for Juventus, so £5 million was given to both of our sister clubs. We also agreed to loan some of our squad fillers out to them, and hopefully that will improve how things are going abroad. But now, we are in such a good position, we need to capitalise on it. This could honestly be our title if we can get things right off the pitch, because Domenico has got everything right after that swap after 2 games. At least, until we got an email we didn't want to see. The physios have said Luka is out for the season, and we need a replacement. I guess the positive is that this happened before the transfer window, so we can actually replace him. The negative is that strikers in January are going to cost twice the price. What can we even do? A loan might work. Nunez, Richarlison and Gabriel Jesus are all available from the Premier League, but that's when we remember. What about that guy that was absolutely bossing it for Castellon earlier in the season? Now, for me to explain why we're even considering signing Geronimo Domina from Castellon, we need to go back to July. He was picked up for a couple of million, and what a season he's had since. You only have to visit YouTube to see his highlight compilation. He can playmake, he can score, he can break defensive down by himself, and best of all, he's only 19 years old. You just have to watch this guy's movement to see how he would fit into our squad. He couldn't be the Luka type target man, but as someone playing off the left, he's probably not far off Jonathan David's performances for us this year. With De Bruyne in, he could mentor him, he could become a second Dybala, or he could learn from David and Luka and become a second Tevez. And that's why we've bet our entire season on someone who's never played outside of the second division in Europe. We made sure to give Castellon a decent amount of compensation for the signing, just to avoid a fan revolt against us, but that's the glory of having a family of clubs. We were only negotiating with ourselves. But how would Geronimo do in his first game for Juventus? We really didn't have to wait long, because we were going straight into the Italian Cup. It was perfect for him to play the game against someone at a much lower level. Well, to be fair, Castellon are probably at a very similar level to Catanzaro, so what we really needed was a performance from Domina, and what a performance we got. It only took him 8 minutes into his Juventus career, wearing the famous Juventus number 9, to score his first goal. There was pats on the back all around the director's box because I think we had found someone who could be truly special. He might be a full foot smaller than Lorenzo Luca, but he was providing so much more threat thanks to his huge amount of pace. He linked up really well with De Bruyne as well. All around, what a signing he could be. Tedesco was actually doing pretty well in all of the cups, to be fair. We were through to the top 8 of the Champions League, we were in the latter stages of the Coppa Italia, and also on track for a top 2 finish. What more could we even ask for? Well, how about a few more goals? Sure, we were winning games, but it wasn't massively entertaining. We let Domenico know exactly what we wanted. Why don't you push your fullback further forward, or get one of the double pivot to start crashing the box? Strangely, Domenico agreed to try this. He spent a week in training practicing this new moves, and then, in the next match, decided to implement them while we were in the stands. Maybe if we'd realised that this was the Turin derby, we wouldn't have suggested the changes for this match, but if they did work and we could win this match, then oh wow, we were gonna be absolutely lauded. However, things weren't going too well. It seemed like our striker was isolated at times, the fullbacks would get forwards and leave space, and it was actually our decision to turn Cambiaso into a wingback. It provided the space that Torino would exploit and go 1-0 up. We could see that Tedesco was not happy with us. Safe to say, we left the stadium early. We couldn't watch any more of this. Okay, I don't want to take any responsibility for that loss, so we'll quietly tell Domenico to revert back to how he used to play. To be fair, that wasn't a great response to receive from your manager, but I think we've got away with it this time. He won't quit the club. We're going to use the lull between January and March to take some well-earned vacation time though, and with the tactics changed back to normal, once again, De Bruyne inspires Juventus onto a bit of a roll. In the Champions League, we reached our targeted quarter-final spot, but in the Coppa Italia, we had the chance to reach the final. But we were actually too busy to attend the semi-final because we had important business near London in England. Reading were confident that they would survive relegation and had requested a meeting to build an academy system funded by the Agnellis. I don't know how we hadn't thought about doing this before, but of course, we took the credit when we took the idea to the big boss. There is so much talent around London, North Italy and the Valencia region of Spain, so all of this talent will be signed and then divided up and assigned as required throughout the 3 clubs. Juventus of course gets the biggest boost with the best talent, but Castellon and Reading now have top 10 academies in their nations. Things are about to take off for this club family, and with things wrapped up in the academy sense, we flew back to Turin just in time for the Champions League semi-finals. So for the first time since 2017, the old lady had made it past the quarterfinals. De Bruyne had been huge, of course, his experience helped us out massively, but he still had the talent to win a couple of games almost by himself. But really, all of the hype now was about Geronimo Domina. Castellon had plucked him out of South America, and what a decision it was to bring him straight into the parent team. Would he be able to add to his 10 goals in 14 games at the highest level of all? Well, we were in the stands now to find out if he could. Even though we gave Tedesco a very easy set of objectives, really, we did want to get past this round. If we could make it to the Champions League final, then I don't think it really matters what we do in the league. But things were not looking good, because we went 1-0 down within 20 minutes thanks to a really good shot from Florian Wirtz. When we signed Domina, there were rumours that he wasn't that mentally strong, and it did look like he was going to choke almost every chance we got in this match, until he did one of the best turns of his career and finished it absolutely beautifully. That was now 11 goals in 15 matches. The guy is on absolutely crazy form. But before we'd even finished our half-time cup of tea, Bayer Leverkusen were back ahead. That man, Florian Wirtz, yet again. If only we had a player like him in our team. Well, I guess if we do, it's Kevin De Bruyne. He chipped it forwards to Geronimo Domina, and again, mentally weak. He should have kept sprinting, and maybe we could have got a goal. De Bruyne would feed Ravela, and again, someone else not mentally there. We don't have a team of players who have been at this level. We just have Kevin De Bruyne, and he was by far our best player and our man of the match. I've got to say, that gives us something to think about for Season 2. Could we be going for some bigger name players? Players like Bernardo Silva, who we know are interested. One of the things that Chiellini told us earlier in the season was don't be afraid to sign old players. So could a Gundogan be really important behind someone like Kevin De Bruyne? It'll be something we have to think about more in the summer, because they're not going to be playing in this match. So once again, we are in the stands in Leverkusen, the Bayer Arena, and we know we need a performance right here. And did we get one? All of our players were on absolute top form. Ravina could have earned a penalty, the referee choosing to wave that one away. A goalkeeper was needed, and Leverkusen did put the ball in the back of the net. But thanks again, the referee got the decision totally right, and Boniface was offside. Tedesco has managed against Leverkusen 4 times in his career, but I'm sure he's never seen anything like this run from Antony. He beat a man, surged into the box, and what a finish that was. As director of football, there's nothing better than one of your signings scoring an important goal. Well, actually, maybe there is. How about 2 of them? De Bruyne with the most unorthodox finish I've ever seen, and what a finish it was. From behind him, he chips it into the top corner, and we are now in control of this semi-final. Before the match, we spoke to Tedesco, and he actually said, if we can get 1 goal, we can then defend, and we will be in control. And that's exactly what was happening on the pitch. Leverkusen were making the wrong decision, crossing it when pullbacks were more likely, and we were able to dominate possession and keep making chances. It was enough for us to see the clock out. Some very smart defending from Fran Garcia would see us waste time. We would waste even more time by subbing De Bruyne off for Thuram, and surely that was it. That was the match. There was no way Leverkusen could score from here, right? No, they couldn't. We were through and into the final. Of course, there is a lot of excitement around the city about the Champions League final, but before then, we have to end the league season. We end up finishing second, within touching distance of a very, very good Inter Milan. We can't be too disappointed. Our target was to try and compete, and I would say we did exactly that. Before the final, Tedesco has his contract extended for another full year, and we start planning our transfers for next season. The Agnellis let us know that we'll get the biggest budget that they can possibly offer, but next year we need first place. Of course we agree, knowing that we can just blame our manager if anything goes wrong. He's been good, but we're not afraid to replace him with someone else if we really, really need to. Of course, he could win the Champions League and then better players will want to come and maybe we could go for a repeat and everything snowballs in a positive way, but I don't think that's going to happen. For the final, we agreed to fly as many of our staff to Budapest as possible, with the Puskás Arena in Hungary hosting our 10th Champions League final appearance. Locatelli, the boy from the northern Italy town of Lecco, was given the captain's armband, and hopefully we'd be seeing his team lift the trophy in around 2 hours' time. We spent the majority of the pre-match talking to Fernando Llorente and Brian McDermott about their plans for next season with our other 2 clubs, but as the game kicks off, you can tell there's a lot of nerves coming from all of the staff off the pitch. Let's hope our staff on the pitch aren't the same. And if anyone isn't going to be nervous, it's Kevin De Bruyne. His passing was just as crisp as always. And when we won a free kick on the edge of the box after a Militao very aggressive tackle actually that resulted in a red card, there was only one man on the pitch. We wanted to take this. What a free kick it was indeed. Kevin De Bruyne finding top bins in the Champions League final is one of the most iconic goals I have ever seen. Over the head of Mbappe, who didn't even bother to jump as well. You would never see that lack of work rate in a team built by us and Tedesco. I wish I'd recorded the scenes that were going on in the director's box when we went 2-0 up. Geronimo Domina, what a signing he was. We paid around 15 million euros for him, and he scores in the Champions League final. He nearly gets another, forcing such a good save from Courtois. I can't remember such a cheap signing having such a big impact on such a high level. Could we make it even better before half-time? Of course, De Bruyne taking the set piece, but no, we would have always taken a 2-0 lead at half-time. All we have to do now is try and hold on in the second half. If we can win the Champions League, our target level goes from Ola Aina to someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold or Reece James, the next level of talent, and that's exactly what we need if we want to keep this rebuild going. There's so much talent on the pitch already. This team just has the start of something very, very special. Could De Bruyne do it again? Well, it doesn't get much closer, and when the rebound was tapped in, we basically knew we had won the Champions League final. In under an hour, we had dismantled Real Madrid. The red card helped, sure, but the rest of the team was so good. We weren't making poor decisions, and Real Madrid were. It took them way too long to pull the ball across, and Perrin was there to save it, keeping his clean sheet and keeping us well ahead in the Champions League final. Madrid then got pretty desperate with their shots, Mbappe forcing a save, Vinicius forcing a save, and we would just keep defending in that typical Juventus DNA way. Perrin made save after save, and before we knew it, we were in stoppage time at the end of the second half. I think there'd be time for one last Real Madrid counter-attack. It would go to Valverde, his shot was so bad, blocked, and the referee would confirm Juventus have won their 3rd Champions League trophy. They haven't won one for about 30 years, and it's so good to bring one back to North Italy for the famous black and white stripes. Going into this, we had no idea we would get anywhere near the Champions League final. Kevin De Bruyne, such a big part of this season. Antony scored really important goals in the semi-final and the quarter-final. Tedesco, absolutely unfaultable. Even if we'd have brought in Ancelotti or Mourinho at the start like we wanted, we probably wouldn't have got this level of performance out of this squad. We were so in tune. We built the squad perfectly for Tedesco, and he has provided us with the Champions League. Now, if this video can get to 6,000 likes, we will make a part 2 talking about our second and third seasons as the director of football at Juventus. And who knows, maybe we might even move club to someone slightly higher up the food chain. But thank you so much for watching. That's probably the first time we've ever won the Champions League as a director of football in these series. Check out the rest of my videos if you enjoyed this one, and hopefully I'll see you soon for some more videos. But thanks for watching. Cheers and goodbye.